There is no meal I love more than an all-you-can-eat world buffet. You're given an empty plate and set your eyes upon a glorious feast of pizza and curry and pasta and rice and chips and chicken and chocolate and ice cream and cake. And you know that until you are full, or actually overfull, you can just keep on eating. You leave thinking there is no way you will feel hungry again until a couple of hours pass and you discover you certainly can be. I want to invite you for a moment to an all-you-can-eat buffet on the hillside by the Sea of Galilee. Ethan, don't forget your lunch. I've got it, Mum. See you later. Ethan was off to meet his mates. They'd heard stories about a man called Jesus who apparently did miracles. And these were no Paul Daniels or dynamo tricks. This was real people they knew, getting up on their feet and running around when they'd been sick for ages. Ethan fought through the crowds to find his friends, and then they just went with the flow to try and catch a glimpse of the man that had become the talk of the town. So here they are. They've been walking for ages and Ethan and his friends are getting hungry. The thing is, all his friends have forgotten their lunch. So there Ethan is grabbing his 5 loaves and 2 fish out of his lunchbox when a man called Andrew, one of Jesus's best mates, comes to him and says, "Hey, there's no phone signal to order a pizza around here, but Jesus says we need to feed everyone. Has anyone got anything?" "Well," says Ethan hesitantly, "I do have a little bit of lunch, but it's never going to feed all these people." Andrew responded, "I'm totally with you on that one, but I guess I'll take it to my friend Jesus and see what he says." Ethan joined his friends and the crowd of over 5,000 men plus all the women and children sitting down on the grass. I guess there was never going to be a picnic rug big enough. And then everyone looked on as Jesus gave thanks for the bread and the fish, and then in a very orderly fashion, Jesus's friends started taking the food around to all the groups. Ethan looked on anxiously, with that thought in his mind that if it came from his lunchbox, surely he should get the first choice. But Ethan needn't have worried. The disciples kept wandering around. They kept giving out food until somehow, miraculously, everyone was stuffed. There on a hillside by the Sea of Galilee, the most bounteous buffet was laid out from one little boy's lunchbox. And they still collected 12 baskets of leftovers. "Wow," Ethan exclaimed. "What did my mum put in that bread?" But people gradually realised that this Jesus must have God on his side, because only a boundless God could lay on such a bounteous buffet. I love the story of the feeding of the 5,000, the only miracle recorded in all 4 Gospels. And I love it not just because it involves food, but because it also shows the overwhelming generosity of an abundant God. We don't just see the crowds filled up to their stomachs stop grumbling. We see them full. We see them satisfied, having eaten as much as they wanted. And still there are 12 baskets of leftovers. This miracle shows us that God is not a God of the just enough, but he is the God of the so much more. And this essence of God's character is seen in so many ways. Our planet, for example. God didn't just throw a few stars into space. He threw billions. He didn't just create one species of bee. but instead 20,000 species. God didn't just give us the oak tree, he gave us 60,000 species of tree around the globe. And in God's relationship with humanity, he proves again and again, he is not a God of the just enough, he is the God of the so much more. God is not begrudging and miserly in his generosity of grace, of mercy, of compassion, of peace and love. His heart overflows with it. In Exodus 34 verses 6 to 7, we read this. The Lord is the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands and forgiving wickedness, rebellion and sin. This is our God. And this is our God, whose generous character is shown again and again in the stories of Jesus' ministry on earth. We have a God who multiplies food so all are full and still there are leftovers. We have a God who says not to just forgive 70 times, but 70 times 7. We have a God who says, if you drink from the water that I give, you will never thirst again. We have a God who pays the greatest cost to redeem us. We have a God of the so much more. One of my favourite scenes from the sitcom The Vicar of Dibley is when Geraldine Granger perfectly demonstrates how to best enjoy a chocolate fountain by putting her head right under the overflowing, seemingly never-ending waterfall of glorious chocolate. I have this image in my head when I read Psalm 23 verse 5, which says, "My cup overflows with blessings." I recognise that on some days we may have to search a little harder. But later on today, stop for a moment and start naming some of the abundant blessings that come from God. Soon you will find that list overflowing. Think about the loaves and the fishes God provides for you, or the roast dinners and sponge puddings. Think about the security and the warmth that is ours. Think about the friendships and relationships which bring us happiness and encouragement. And think about his love, his grace and his joy. Just as on that hillside at the side of the Sea of Galilee, God gives us so much more. And an incredible thing too is he invites us to be part of his overflowing blessings. The young lad with his 5 loaves and 2 fish didn't have much to offer when it came to feeding 5,000. But he did give what he had. So often we hold back and are hesitant to give what we have because we don't feel that it is good enough. We don't feel that the gifts, the skills and the talents we have will make any difference. We shy away and hope someone else will step up and take responsibility. Just imagine what would have happened if that little boy hadn't opened up his lunchbox and handed it to Jesus. God invites us to be part of his mission on earth. He invites us to hand over whatever we possess, knowing it first came from him, and he takes it, blesses it and uses it to show others his abundant provision and love. What we can give might not feed 5,000, but it absolutely can offer some encouragement to a friend, or joy to a family member, or hope to a stranger. We just need the courage to offer ourselves back to the one who created us. Whether you think what you have isn't even enough to feed yourself, or you recognise the talents or gifts that you do have, when in God's hands, he can do so much more than we ever could. There's a beautiful quote from Henry van Dyke which says, "Use what talents you possess. The woods would be very quiet if no bird sang but the one which sang the best." God's abundant generosity isn't restricted to the created world or physical provision or even his love. He has generously gifted each and every one of us with abilities and personalities and characteristics with which he can bless the world through us. And all of this is part of his love offering to the world. In his song, Reckless Love, Corey Asbury writes this: "Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God." The God who can feed over 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish wants you to know that he can do the miraculous in your life too. He wants you to know that his love for you is overwhelming and overflowing, but never overrated. And in response to the love Christ has for you, may the Lord make your love increase and overflow for each other and for everyone else. God bless you.